Toxic people don't choose their victims randomly. There's actually a systematic psychology behind who they target. And if you've been targeted before, I'm going to show you exactly why. And more importantly, it's not what you think. If you've ever wondered, why does this keep happening to me? Or felt like you have a target painted on your back for difficult people, this episode will finally give you the answers you've been searching for. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Complete Toxic Person Survival Guide. In episode 1, we learned how to spot the Dark Triad personalities: narcissists, psychopaths, and Machiavellians in the first 60 seconds of meeting them. Today, we're going deeper into their psychology, specifically how they choose their targets, why certain people become magnets for toxic behavior, and why your best qualities might actually be making you vulnerable. And I want to address something right up front because I know many of you are carrying shame about this. First, let's get something absolutely clear. If you've been targeted by toxic people, it's not because you're weak, broken, or asking for it. In fact, research from Dr. Sandra Brown's Institute for Relational Harm Reduction shows that toxic people specifically target people with the best qualities: empathy, kindness, and emotional intelligence. Here's the twisted irony that most people don't understand. The very traits that make you a good person are exactly what toxic people exploit. They don't target mean, selfish people. Those people don't give them what they need. As one of you commented recently, toxic people don't break you all at once. They chip away at your confidence slowly. That's exactly right. And that slow chipping process, it's not random. It's calculated, and it starts with how they choose you in the first place. If you've ever felt out of breath trying to keep up with someone's demands, or found yourself stressed and humiliated for reasons you couldn't quite explain, you've experienced this targeting process firsthand. Let me connect this back to what we learned in episode 1 about the Dark Triad personalities, because each type targets different qualities. Narcissists target empaths and givers because they need constant admiration and attention. They can't get narcissistic supply from other narcissists. They need someone who will actually provide it. Psychopaths target people with weak boundaries because they need someone they can manipulate and control for their entertainment. They're looking for someone who won't effectively fight back. Machiavellians target people pleasers and accommodating individuals because they need someone they can use strategically. They want someone who will sacrifice their own needs for the Machiavellians' goals. Research from Dr. Ramani Durvasula at California State University shows that individuals high in empathy are 73% more likely to be targeted by Dark Triad personalities than those with average empathy levels. But here's what's crucial to understand. This targeting doesn't happen by accident. It's a systematic process. Phase 1, the scanning process. Toxic people are like psychological predators. They scan environments, workplaces, social gatherings, online spaces, even family dynamics, looking for specific signals that indicate a good target. Dr. Martha Stout's research at Harvard Medical School on sociopathic behavior reveals that manipulative individuals can identify potential targets within 3 to 7 minutes of observation. Here's what they're scanning for: high empathy signals. You help others without being asked. You show genuine concern for people's feelings. You try to include everyone in conversations. To them, this signals, this person will prioritize my needs over their own. Boundary uncertainty. You apologize frequently, even for things that aren't your fault. You over-explain your decisions. You say sorry to bother you before making reasonable requests. This signals this person doubts their right to have needs. People-pleasing tendencies. You avoid conflict. You say yes when you mean no. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny to keep the peace. This signals this person will sacrifice their comfort for harmony. Emotional availability. You're going through transitions: new job, recent breakup, family stress, major life changes. This signals this person is vulnerable and needs support. Let me give you a real-world example. Sarah, a marketing manager, started a new job. On her first day, she helped a coworker carry boxes, stayed late to finish a project that wasn't hers, and apologized when someone else bumped into her. A toxic colleague observed all of this and immediately identified her as a target. They can spot these traits within minutes of meeting you. And here's what's important to understand. It's not conscious. It's instinctual, like a predator identifying the weakest member of a herd. Phase 2. The testing phase. Once they've identified you as a potential target, they run systematic tests to confirm you're worth their investment. These aren't random behaviors, they're calculated assessments. Test number 1, the small boundary push. They'll ask for a small favor that's slightly inappropriate or inconvenient, then watch your response. Do you say no clearly or do you comply to avoid conflict? Real example. A toxic coworker asks you to cover their shift with only 30 minutes notice, saying, "I know it's last minute, but I really need this favor." They're not actually in crisis. They're testing if you'll sacrifice your plans to avoid disappointing them. Test number 2, the emotional manipulation. They'll share a sob story or create artificial urgency to see if you offer help, sympathy, or resources. They're gauging how much emotional labor you'll provide. Real example. A toxic friend calls you repeatedly during your work hours saying, "Nobody understands what I'm going through. You're the only one who gets me." They're testing if you'll drop everything to manage their emotions. Test number 3, the criticism test. They'll make a subtle criticism disguised as concern or helpful advice. Then watch if you defend yourself or absorb the blame. Real example, a toxic family member says, "You seem really stressed lately. Maybe you should learn to manage your time better." They're testing if you'll accept responsibility for their behavior affecting you. Test number 4, the isolation probe. They'll ask probing questions about your support system and relationships, looking for signs that you don't have strong boundaries with others. Real example. A toxic romantic interest says, "Your friends don't really understand you like I do. They seem kind of judgmental." They're testing if you'll prioritize their opinion over your existing relationships. Research from Dr. George Simon's work on manipulative behavior shows that these testing phases typically occur within the first 2 to 4 interactions with a potential target. Phase 3, the confirmation signals. If you pass their tests, meaning you fail to set appropriate boundaries, they receive confirmation signals that you're the perfect target for long-term exploitation. Green light number 1, you over-explain. When they question your decisions, you provide lengthy justifications instead of simply stating your choice. This shows them you doubt yourself and seek their approval. Example, instead of saying, "I can't work late tonight," you say, "I'm so sorry, but I have this family thing, and I know it's inconvenient, but I promised my sister, and I feel terrible about leaving you with this." Green light number 2, you absorb blame. You apologize for things that aren't your fault, especially their emotional reactions to your boundaries. This shows them you'll take responsibility for their behavior. Example, when they get angry about your reasonable request, you say, "I'm sorry for upsetting you," instead of, "Your reaction is inappropriate." Green light number 3, you provide emotional labor. You try to fix their problems, manage their emotions, or take on their responsibilities. This shows them you'll sacrifice your energy for their needs. Example, when they complain about their life, you spend hours offering solutions, resources, and support, while they never reciprocate when you need help. Green light number 4, you avoid conflict. When they push back against your boundaries, you back down to keep the peace. This shows them they can escalate to get their way. Example, when you say no to something and they argue, guilt trip, or get angry, you change your answer to yes to stop the conflict. Dr. Lundy Bancroft's research on abusive personalities shows that these confirmation signals typically solidify the targeting decision within 30 days of initial contact. Phase 4, the psychology behind the targeting. Now, here's what most people don't understand about toxic people. They're not actually confident or self-sufficient. They're deeply insecure and need constant external validation to maintain their self-image. What narcissists need from targets. Narcissists require what psychologists call narcissistic supply: constant admiration, attention, and validation. Research from Dr. Jean Twenge at San Diego State University shows that narcissists experience genuine distress when they don't receive regular ego boosts. They target empathetic givers because these people naturally provide praise, attention, and emotional support. They can't get this from other narcissists because narcissists only take. They don't give supply. What psychopaths need from targets. Psychopaths are driven by what Dr. Robert Hare calls stimulation seeking. They need entertainment, control, and the neurochemical reward they get from dominating others. They target people with weak boundaries because these individuals provide the most entertainment through their emotional reactions and compliance. Strong, boundaried people are boring to psychopath because they can't be easily manipulated. What Machiavellians need from targets. Machiavellians view relationships as strategic resources. Research from Dr. Richard Christie's work on Machiavellianism shows they specifically target individuals who have something they want: connections, skills, resources, or influence, and who can be manipulated into sharing those assets. They target accommodating, people-pleasing individuals because these people will sacrifice their own interests for the Machiavellians' goals. Here's the key insight. They can't get these needs met from other toxic people. Toxic people don't give, they only take. They need good people to exploit. The empathy trap. Your empathy is both your greatest strength and your biggest vulnerability when it comes to toxic people. Here's why. You assume others have good intentions. Because you operate from empathy, you assume others do too. When someone asks for help or shares a problem, you naturally want to assist. Toxic people exploit this assumption by creating fake crises and manufactured urgency. You give people the benefit of the doubt. Your empathy makes you excuse bad behavior and give multiple chances. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Toxic people count on this tendency to avoid consequences for their actions. You try to understand their perspective. Your empathy drives you to see situations from others' viewpoints, even when they're clearly wrong. Toxic people use your understanding against you by reframing their abuse as your misunderstanding. You feel guilty setting boundaries. Your empathy makes you worry about hurting others' feelings, even when protecting yourself. Toxic people weaponize this guilt by making you feel selfish for having needs. Dr. Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive people shows that individuals with high empathy are 4 times more likely to remain in toxic relationships longer than average, specifically because of these empathetic responses. Toxic people don't have empathy, but they understand how to exploit yours. They've learned to mimic distress, create artificial urgency, and manipulate your caring nature for their benefit. Let me paint you a picture of the ideal target from a toxic person's perspective. They're looking for someone who has something they want. This could be attention, emotional support, financial resources, social connections, professional skills, or even just someone to control and dominate. Won't fight back effectively. Someone who avoids conflict, doubts themselves, or has been conditioned to prioritize others' comfort over their own safety. Will blame themselves instead of the toxic person. Someone who takes responsibility for others' emotions and behaviors, making it easy for the toxic person to avoid accountability. Has weak or inconsistent boundaries. Someone who says yes when they mean no, who can be guilt-tripped into changing their decisions, or who doesn't enforce consequences for bad behavior. Values harmony over self-protection. Someone who will sacrifice their own well-being to maintain peace, avoid confrontation, or keep others happy. If you recognize yourself in this description, please don't feel ashamed. These are actually beautiful qualities. They've just been exploited by the wrong people. The goal isn't to become cold or suspicious. The goal is to learn how to protect these qualities while making yourself an unappealing target. Now that you understand how they choose targets and why you might have been selected in the past, the next crucial question is, how do you make yourself an unappealing target? How do you keep your empathy and kindness while protecting yourself from exploitation? That's exactly what we're covering in episode 3, 5 phrases that make toxic people leave you alone. I'm going to give you the specific language that signals to toxic people that you're not an easy target, without becoming mean or losing your authentic self. These aren't just random phrases, they're psychologically designed responses that communicate strength, boundaries, and self-respect in ways that toxic people instinctively recognize and avoid. We'll also cover the advanced psychology behind why these phrases work, how to deliver them with the right tone and timing, and what to do when toxic people try to push back against your new boundaries. If this episode helped you understand why you've been targeted in the past, you're going to love episode 3. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss it. And here's something important. If you recognize yourself as someone who gets targeted, leave a comment below. Share your experience if you feel comfortable. You'll see you're not alone, and your story might help someone else realize they're not crazy or weak. They're just dealing with people who exploit goodness. As one of you commented, "I wish I had seen this years ago." I understand that feeling, but remember, it's never too late to learn these patterns. Every day you understand more about toxic behavior is a day you become stronger and more protected. The complete series playlist is in the description. Episode 3 drops in 3 days with those 5 phrases that create an invisible shield around you. These aren't aggressive responses. They're intelligent ones that preserve your kindness while protecting your peace. Remember, being targeted doesn't mean you're weak. It means you have qualities that are valuable, so valuable that toxic people want to steal them. Your job isn't to become less empathetic. Your job is to become more selective about who deserves your empathy. You deserve relationships that celebrate your kindness, not exploit it. You deserve people who respect your boundaries, not test them. And you deserve to feel safe being your authentic, caring self. I'll see you in episode 3 where we turn this knowledge into power.